Claire thought her whirlwind romance was the start of her happily ever after, until an overheard conversation between her mother and her husband James. Betrayed by the two people she trusted most, Claire embarks on a journey to uncover their motives and reclaim her life. Get a cup of coffee and settle down, because this story is inspiring from start to finish. Don't forget to like and subscribe for more inspiring stories. They say hindsight is 20/20ths, but no one tells you how much it can hurt. Looking back, the warning signs were there, flashing like neon lights. I just didn't want to see them. It all started a few months ago when I met James during a rushed lunch break at a tiny coffee shop downtown. He was charming, attentive, and just the right kind of confident. The kind that makes you feel like you're the only person in the room. And he stole my attention away from the club sandwich I'd been craving all morning. Not to mention his smile. For whirlwind months later, he proposed while we were taking a walk on the beach. I said yes without hesitation. I mean, sure, people raised their eyebrows. Too fast, Cyril, James' uncle said. Claire must be pregnant. Another person hissed at our engagement party. Maybe it's about money, my cousin Melody said. But I didn't care. I was convinced I'd found my forever person. Our wedding was a modest, intimate, and beautiful affair. It had all the pink and champagne tones a girl could have hoped for. And I felt more special than I had in my entire life. My mom, Patricia, couldn't have been happier. From the moment she met James, she gushed about how he was perfect for me. At the time, I thought it was sweet. Now I know better, way better. My relationship with my mom had always been complicated. She was overly involved in my life, especially after my messy breakup with my college boyfriend, Nick. I'd been devastated after catching him cheating on me with a close friend. In our dorm, for months, my mom hovered, offering unsolicited advice about love and relationships. "You're too trusting," she'd say, or "You need someone who will protect you, Claire." But her protectiveness turned suffocating after a health scare 2 years ago when I was diagnosed with type 1 diabetes. It required constant management, like monitoring my blood sugar levels, insulin injections, and a careful balance of diet and exercise. I had since stabilized, but it was as if my mom never got the memo. She saw me as fragile, incapable of navigating my life alone. I should have realized that mindset would lead her to do something drastic. Thanksgiving came and went with all the warmth and tradition you'd expect. My husband and I joined my parents for dinner, laughing over turkey and tons of pie, diabetes-friendly of course. After dessert, I headed upstairs to my childhood room. I'd left a box of keepsakes there and decided to grab it before we left. It was a box of friendship bracelets, bookmarks, old Polaroids, and love letters from school crushes. I also wanted to take my collection of first edition classic novels. James had finally built my bookshelf. That's when everything started to unravel, that I needed an empty box to pack the books. So I turned back toward the stairs, hoping that I'd find a box in the garage. As I approached the landing, I froze. Voices drifted up from the living room. They were low, hushed, and conspiratorial. "Patricia, you know damn well that I wouldn't have married her if you hadn't given me the—" That was James. My stomach twisted, the pie mixing uncomfortably. What was he talking about? My mom's voice cut him off, sharp and urgent. "Shh, James, she might hear us." I crept closer, my heart pounding. "I'm just saying the money is nice and all that, but you didn't need to go that far. The money's nice, but living with her, it's not exactly what I signed up for. I have to check on her every single time the house is too quiet. And I have to monitor everything she eats. Do you know how difficult that is?" I couldn't breathe. My head spun. What money? And living with her? My chest felt like it was caving in. "I told you," my mom whispered, her voice insistent. "She's fragile. Nobody else would have. Well, you know. Just be patient, James. It's not forever. Soon, when she's doing better at work, you can leave. She needs her confidence up first. fragile. It was like I was some kind of broken doll she'd handed off to be fixed. James scoffed. Yeah, sure. But don't forget, Patricia, I expect the rest of the payment by Christmas. I'm not sticking around if you don't hold up your end. My legs wobbled as I backed away into my childhood bedroom, barely able to process what I'd just heard. My husband had been paid to marry me, by my own mother. I sat in my room, staring blankly at the posters on the wall, the weight of their words pressing down on me. Fragile? No one else would have married me? Every memory of James, the sweet gestures, the whispered promises, now all of that felt like a cruel joke. For the next few weeks, I lived in a nightmare. I pretended that everything was fine while secretly piecing through the truth. When James worked late, I dug through his belongings, finding bank statements that told a damning story. There were large deposits from my mom's account labeled with vague memos. For expenses. First installment. Final payment. Of course, it was the final payment, due at Christmas, like James had demanded. That sent me reeling. James wasn't just in this for the money. He depended on it. In his emails, I found conversations with friends mentioning gambling debts and maxed out credit cards. My mom had essentially bailed him out in exchange for his cooperation, that I barely held it together. Every time James touched me, I flinched. Every time my mom called, I bit back the urge to scream. The betrayal stung in ways I hadn't anticipated, shaking my self-worth to the core. Did my mom think I was unlovable? Did James ever care about me at all? Was it all just a performance? I debated confronting them privately, but then decided against it. No, Claire, I told myself. Don't give them the satisfaction of something private and respectful. They deserve worse. A public confrontation would hold them accountable, preventing them from gaslighting me or spinning the narrative in their favor. Christmas Eve arrived, and my mom hosted the usual family dinner. Her house sparkled with holiday cheer. From the twinkling lights to the tray of cinnamon eggnog to the carols playing softly in the background. James and I arrived early, carrying gifts. One of them, carefully wrapped and tied with a bow, held the evidence and damning truth. The evening unfolded like any other Christmas Eve dinner. My mom's smile was as fake as the plastic mistletoe hanging in the doorway. James played the doting husband, serving me from the platters of food, his arm constantly around me like nothing had changed. But inside, I was shaking. When dessert was served, I stood, holding my gift. Before we get into the sweet treats, I said, forcing my voice to remain steady, I want to give Mom something special. Her face lit up, her eyes sparkling with anticipation. Oh, honey pie, she exclaimed. You didn't have to. You being here and being all happy and healthy is the only gift I needed. Oh no, I said. You definitely deserve this one, Mom. I handed her the box and smiled. She tore into the wrapping paper, her smile faltering as she got through the box's seal, uncovering the contents. A stack of papers. Her confusion quickly turned to panic as she read the top page. Do you want to read it aloud, Mom? I asked sweetly. Or should I? The room fell silent. I don't understand. What is this? She asked. It's a record of every payment you made to James, I said, my voice cutting through the tension like a knife. For marrying me. Gasps rippled around the table. James' fork clattered to his plate. Claire, I can explain, he began to say while my mom spoke too. Honey, I don't know who told you what, but I raised my hand. Save it. Both of you, I said. My mom spoke first. Despite my words, her face was ghostly pale. Darling, I did it for you, she said quietly. I didn't want you to be alone. After your father cheated on me when you were a child, I've had to live with being alone. It's difficult and lonely. And you're sickly, Claire. I did it for you, honey. You didn't do it for me. I shot back, my voice trembling with anger. You did it because you think I'm not good enough to find someone on my own. Isn't that right? It's because you want to control, isn't it? Well, congratulations, Mom. You bought me a husband, and you've both lost me. James tried to interject, but I turned on him, fire in my veins. And as for you, I said, my goodness, I hope the money was worth it, because you're not getting anything from me. Not another cent. My mother can continue being your bank for all I care. But this marriage is definitely over. With that, I grabbed my coat and walked out, leaving them to choke on the ruins of their lies that it's been a few months since that night. I filed for divorce early in the new year because it had been a nightmare to get any lawyers to work on it as soon as possible. James didn't contest it. He probably knew fighting it would expose the payments, or bribes, or whatever you'd call it. I've barely spoken to my mom. She's tried to apologize, sending tearful texts and emails, but I'm not ready to forgive her. Maybe I never will. Healing has been slow, especially because the stress of the situation had led me to eat things I wasn't supposed to, causing my blood sugar levels to skyrocket, sending me straight to the hospital for a week. But since then, I've been going to therapy, which has helped me unpack the hurt and rebuild my self-esteem. I've also reconnected with old friends who've reminded me of my worth. I may not know what the future holds, but for the first time in years, I feel free. And that's worth more than all the money in the world.